winter here in Australia, and that means that we are seeing much less of the sun. It's rising later in the mornings, it's setting earlier in the evenings. And less sunlight means less vitamin D. Now, I've done a video going quite in depth with vitamin D in the past, so if you want to know a bit more about how it works and why exactly we need it in the body, then just click here. But just as a quick summary, vitamin D is probably most important for your bone health, and that is because it helps your body absorb calcium and phosphate. Now, both of these things are very much needed for your bone matrix. It makes up the insides of your bone, and that helps to make sure that your bones are strong and dense. And yes, calcium probably is the most important nutrient when it comes to bones, but without vitamin D, you're probably absorbing much less calcium. If you are vitamin D deficient, when you eat calcium through your diet, you'll be absorbing about 15 to 20% of the calcium. But if you have enough vitamin D, that number goes up to 30 to 40%. So if you're putting in all the effort to make sure that you're getting enough calcium intake, but you're ignoring your vitamin D, then you are leaving a lot of that calcium on the table and you're not making the most of your efforts. But it's not just your bones, your muscles need vitamin D as well. Vitamin D is actually very helpful when it comes to muscle recovery. So if you're someone that does fairly intense exercise, you'll know that usually the day after, or more so 2 days after doing quite heavy lifting or very, very intense exercise, you will be sore, you will experience muscle soreness. And that's because when you do work out your muscles very intensely, you cause little micro tears to muscle fibers. And those tears are great because obviously when you repair them, they get stronger, and that's how your muscles get stronger. But at the time, that causes and leads to inflammation in the body. Now, vitamin D has anti-inflammatory effects. It's not the only nutrient that has anti-inflammatory effects, and of course there are many other things that can help with muscle recovery, but vitamin D can also help with the inflammation that occurs after exercise, and that means that you can recover faster. You'll have less soreness, less stiffness, and it means that you can get back to training at the same intensity quicker. So it's not really the main function of vitamin D, but if you think about it, bones and muscles, they do work together. Now, two other things that vitamin D helps with is your immune system and mood. And for today's video, I'll be focusing a little bit more on mood, and that's because when winter comes, so does seasonal depression, and vitamin D does play a little bit of a role in that. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Kamini from Longgame.haf. I put out videos that help you learn about everything you need to know about important health topics so that you can make decisions to help benefit your health and make small changes that you can sustain for a long period of time so that when you're older you can reap the benefits. So if that sounds good to you, please don't forget to subscribe. Let's get back to the video. Vitamin D deficiency is extremely common in Australia, and you might think that's weird because we get a heck of a lot of sunlight in this country, and that's true, but a lot of us live lifestyles that actually make it difficult for us to get the amount of sunlight we need, particularly in winter. In summer it's not so much of an issue, but in winter our UV index does drop and we do need more sunlight. And like I said, we're mostly indoors. We get up, we get into our cars, we drive to work, which is for the most part, for most people, I think, indoors. And then we leave work, we get back in our cars, we may go to the gym, which is indoors, and then we go back home and it's nighttime. And in winter, I don't know about you, but when I'm leaving work, it is dark, the sun is gone. There is no chance for me to get any sunlight anymore. So with that being said, it's actually estimated that 1/4 of all Australians are deficient in vitamin D, and that is a lot. So let's talk about how we can get more vitamin D. Vitamin D is actually one of the few nutrients that you don't get primarily from your diet. You get it from the sun, and that is because the sun helps your skin produce vitamin D. So within your skin is a compound called 7-dehydrocholesterol, and like the name suggests, that does come from cholesterol. So it's one of those rare things where you actually do need cholesterol. In past videos, I've said that you do need some amount of cholesterol. This is one of the reasons why, to make vitamin D. Now, this 7-dehydrocholesterol, when your skin is exposed to sunlight, this will get converted into a pre-vitamin D. After some time, this pre-vitamin D will then turn into something called cholecalciferol, which is vitamin D3. And if that sounds familiar to you, that would be because this is the form of vitamin D that you would usually find in supplements or also that you get from eating animal-based products. But anyway, once you have this vitamin D3, it will travel in your blood and it will go through your liver and then reach your kidneys. And the kidneys are very important here because vitamin D gets activated in the kidneys. It's all well and good to have vitamin D3, but without the kidneys you are not going to get the activated form, which means you cannot get the main benefits of the vitamin. So your kidneys, that is where all the magic happens, and it essentially turns on vitamin D. But a very important question to ask is, how much sunlight do you need to get the right amount of vitamin D? And this depends on where you are in the world, how much exposure to sunlight is available, but also how much UV radiation, the sunlight that you are exposed to, is giving you. So I'm going to be focusing on what happens in Australia because that's where I live. So like I said, it's pretty easy for us in Australia to get the vitamin D amounts we need from the sun, and that is because, as you can see in this image, it only takes about a few minutes of sunlight for us to get the vitamin D that we need, and that is Australia-wide during summer. In winter, it's a bit of a different story, and that is because the southern part of the country, so that is Perth, South Australia, Tasmania, Sydney, Melbourne, these areas get less UV radiation in winter time, and that means more sunlight is needed. So if you're in these areas of the country during winter, then you need to get about 2 to 3 hours of direct sunlight over the course of the week. So if you think about it, it's spread out over a week, so it's not as bad, but it is significantly more than what we need during summer. If you're in Brisbane and Darwin or Northern Territory, you don't need to worry about that. Year round, you just need a few minutes every day of direct sunlight, and you'll just get that walking around day to day. Just keep in mind that this 2 to 3 hours per week of sunlight that you need, it does need to hit your face, arms or hands, or any equivalent area of skin. So it's not a huge amount. You don't need to be running around in shorts and a singlet, but you do need it to hit your skin in some way. But can you get vitamin D from food? The answer is yes, and I've got two good sources here. The first is fatty fish, and that would be things like salmon or tuna. Tuna is my fish of choice purely because it is way more affordable, and I am not rich enough to have salmon in this current cost of living crisis. Now the other great source is eggs, and you'll find a lot of vitamin D actually stored in the yolk of eggs. Now fish is a way better source compared to eggs. You'll get a significant amount of your daily required intake just from one serve of fatty fish. Like I said, tuna and salmon, also sardines if you like that. But eggs are a decent source as well. Hopefully somewhere on the screen is showing you how much vitamin D you can get from a serve of some pretty good food sources. Sunlight is definitely the #1 go-to source for vitamin D, but ideally you actually have a balance of both, because if you have a well-balanced diet, then you'll be getting the amount of vitamin D that you're needing. Someone that may be struggling to get the right amount of vitamin D from food sources, then fortified foods are actually a pretty good option. So some products like cereals, milks and breads, they will be fortified with certain vitamins and minerals, and vitamin D is one of the vitamins that you may find in these products. Now just because something is fortified doesn't mean it automatically has vitamin D. So what you'll need to do is look at the nutrition information label, and they will tell you what vitamins or minerals the product has been fortified with. But that is a very good option to use if you can't quite get enough vitamin D from sunlight or food. But of course, if you are completely out of options, fortified foods aren't for you, other sources aren't for you, then there is the option of having a vitamin D supplement. With most supplements, I do always say get a blood test, because blood tests are the only way you can really confirm that you are vitamin D deficient. I found this out with a blood test a couple years ago that I was vitamin D deficient and started taking a supplement. Supplements can be great, but only if you actually need them. So just have a quick chat to your doctor and they will get a blood test sorted out for you, and then off you go. Now there's one more thing I need to talk about, and that is seasonal depression. In winter, when the sun disappears, many people also feel that their energy levels go down, their mood goes down. This is also called seasonal affective disorder. It is an actual thing, commonly known as seasonal depression, and there are many causes for this. This video is not ready to focus on that specifically, but vitamin D is one thing that you may need to pay attention to if you are someone that experiences seasonal depression. And that is because vitamin D is actually involved in the pathway of how your body makes serotonin. If you didn't know, serotonin is a very important neurotransmitter. It influences your mood, learning, memory, general feelings of happiness as well. So as you can imagine, if you are deficient in vitamin D, you may also have less serotonin, and that may be what is contributing to your seasonal depression or just feeling a bit lower in the winter months. So if you are someone that is experiencing those things, if seasonal depression is something that really affects you, the first thing you should do is see if you can get a vitamin D blood test to see if you are deficient. Research has even shown that vitamin D can help in seasonal depression if you are deficient though. So that's just my tip for the day. Now, as I said, vitamin D affects about 1/4 of all Australians, but there are particular groups of people that are more at risk of deficiency than others. And the first group is actually people that have slightly darker skin tones, such as myself. If you have more melanin, then you will actually need more sun exposure probably to get the amount of vitamin D that you need. And that is because melanin absorbs UVB rays instead of allowing your skin to make the vitamin D from the UVB. Now this is great for preventing skin cancer, of course, because UVB can contribute to skin cancer, but it's not good if you're trying to get vitamin D levels. It's a pretty easy fix. It just means that you need more sunshine than others. You may need more vitamin D from your food sources as well. Now, the other group of people are people that spend most of their time indoors. I've already talked about how our lifestyles don't really allow for much time outdoors anymore. So if you're someone that's going to work indoors and doing most of their activities indoors, or they finish work and the sun's gone, you're more at risk of having a vitamin D deficiency. Maybe it means you need to make sure you are getting out at some point during your tea break or your lunch break to get some sunlight, or potentially a supplement. The last group that I want to focus on is the elderly. As you age, you lose the ability of your skin to turn sunlight into vitamin D as efficiently. So your requirement for vitamin D from your diet and from sunlight, it goes higher. A lot of elderly Australians are deficient in vitamin D and end up being on a supplement. So if you belong to any of the groups that I just mentioned before, probably just a good idea to get a blood test to see where your vitamin D levels are at, and then you can work towards getting them back to a normal level if you are low. So that brings me to the end of this video. Hopefully you can use this week to think about whether you are getting enough vitamin D. Look at this chart to see if you're getting enough sunlight, especially during these winter months, and hopefully we can all target vitamin D deficiency and seasonal depression together. I'm lucky, I live in Perth. We tend to get quite a bit of sunlight even during winter, so I'll just be making sure I get more sunlight during this season. If you're somewhere like Melbourne where it is pretty dull during winter, you may need to turn to more food sources or even a supplement. So it'll be different for everyone, but yeah, the next 3 months, try and get some vitamin D. If you enjoyed this video, please give a like and subscribe. If you have any questions, you want me to talk about anything else to do with vitamin D or anything else in general, please leave a comment. If you've watched any of my other videos, you can tell I've kind of changed up the style a little bit, so let me know if you like this or if you hate this and I should just crawl back into my hole. But I'll see you in the next video, and until then, keep playing the long game.